Don't be puzzled about annual reports. CSC can help. My name is Anu Shah, and I will be your moderator. Joining us today is Jen Brendel and special guest Paula Washburn. Jen has been with CSC for 2 years, piggybacking on a successful career in financial services. Jen works at CSC's headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware, and helps lead the annual report preparation and filing team that manages the portfolios of almost 7,000 customers and approximately 200,000 filings per year. Paula has been with CSC for over 30 years. During her tenure, she has managed customer service and fulfillment teams in numerous CSC offices. For the past 4 years, she has worked as the operations manager of CSC's annual report preparation and filing team. That is one of several teams comprising CSC's compliance solutions. And with that, let's welcome Jen and Paula.
Well, good morning, everyone. Today, we will be providing a comprehensive overview of the annual report services provided by Corporation Service Company. After the end of our review, we are confident that you will understand topics such as what is an annual report and the consequences of not filing, what are the filing requirements in each state, and when are the reports due, does the annual report filing also satisfy my business license filing requirement, and most importantly, we will share with you how CSC can help you mitigate risk and stress by partnering with our compliance team to manage your annual report portfolio. So to get started, we'd like to ask the audience a question. Anu, can you give us the first question?
Absolutely. Thanks, Paula. So, folks, we have a multiple choice question on the screen for you. What is the biggest challenge you face when it comes to annual reports? We'll give you all a moment to make your selections. Okay, thank you to everybody that participated. Paula, back to you.
Okay, well, it looks like we have a lot of interest in basically all of the above. So we have that's, knowing what the requirements are, knowing when your reports are due, knowing when reports are filed. So at CSC, our service teams make it a priority to understand your business workflow. So by doing so, we can help alleviate some of the challenges of filing your annual reports. Jen, let's provide the group with some additional insight into what an annual report is.
Absolutely, Paula. So an annual report is a filing that must be completed and filed with the Secretary of State in order to maintain compliance for your business. Most jurisdictions require entities to file a report either each year or every other year to ensure that they maintain their good standing. And in doing that, the state jurisdictions ensure that they have the most accurate entity information for businesses that are registered within their states. So, as we'll learn throughout this presentation, not all annual reports are created equal. One of the most challenging aspects of understanding what report needs to be filed is actually determining the name of the report. If it was really easy, or it would be really easy if all jurisdictions called the report an annual report, but as we know, that is not the case. A few examples of that are in California, it's called a Statement of Information. Nebraska calls their annual filing an occupational tax report, and then Nevada calls it an annual list, just to name a few. And then you have several other states, such as Delaware and Arkansas, that refer to their annual filing requirement as a franchise tax return.
Well, thanks, Jen. Based on the examples you provided, I can understand how it would be difficult to identify and understand the requirements based on the name alone. The names of the reports really can be deceiving. Are there any other states that come to mind that may lead you to believe that the filing requirement is an annual report filing but may not be required, or vice versa?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paula. So in the past few years, we've actually seen an increase in reported scam notices that are mailed to some of our customers. At first glance, the scams appear to be legitimate and ask for a payment and updated entity information. The notices that we've seen normally have a title outlining the requirement as annual minute statement. And in most cases, our clients have sent those over to us. We were able to look them over and confirm that they were false and were a scam and should be immediately discarded. So That's just a great example of ways that we can assist our annual reports clients here at CSC. We do have a team of trained annual report experts to help identify when a filing is actually required.
Thanks, Jen. That's really great information to pass along. You mentioned that the scam notifications can appear legitimate and make the recipient believe a filing is required. Can you provide us with some more information about how someone would know they need to file an annual report?
Sure, that's actually a very common question that we receive here. So if you're registered with the Secretary of State office, you're probably required to submit either an annual or a biennial filing. When and how you need to file can vary depending upon the jurisdiction and also by the entity type. So I'll give you a few examples of that. In Arizona, limited liability companies are not required to file an annual report with the Arizona Corporation Commission. However, corporations are required to file each year. And in California, corporations are required to file annually while LLCs file every other year. Our team of trained professionals can assist you in reviewing the requirements for each of your entities.
So the requirements, for reports really can vary by jurisdiction. Are there any other requirements that come to mind to maintain good standing with the Secretary of State?
Yeah, great question. So I mentioned a few minutes ago that often the biggest challenge when it comes to filing, excuse me, is the differing requirements throughout each jurisdiction. So some states such as California, Missouri, Nevada, and Washington have what are called initial report requirements, which essentially means that the first annual report must be submitted within a certain time frame after you either form or qualify your business. Some jurisdictions allow 30 days and others allow up to 120 days to get that filing completed. So it's really important to understand each of the state requirements because failure to do so could result in a negative status for your entity or even revocation by the state.
That's really great to know. So these types of requirements can sometimes be difficult to track and often missed. It's important to understand the variety of filings that the Secretary of State may require. You mentioned a time frame for filing an initial report. How about specific time frames for filing annual reports?
Sure. So much like the requirements I just described, due dates can also vary by jurisdiction and entity type. So some states base their filing deadline by anniversary date or anniversary month. There's states like North Carolina and Kansas that have varying due dates based upon the fiscal year end. And there's even some jurisdictions like Florida and Georgia that pick one date per year where all entities must file. Due dates can also be a moving target. So we have Hawaii, for example, who provides a filing window based upon the date that the entity qualified to do business. So as your registered agent, CSC will have your basic entity information in what we call our entity management solution. And this includes the name of your entities, their formation states, the jurisdictions that they're qualified to do business in, and their qualification dates as well. And what this does is it allows us to build a customized compliance calendar based upon your specific entity data. And not all states are currently sending notifications of upcoming filings. So what the compliance calendar does is it really is critical for us to manage those upcoming filings as they're coming due.
All right, so it's really you've outlined that it's difficult to manage and maintain these varying due dates, especially with some states now they change their notification methods, and we have some states that are not even sending reminders at all anymore. So I think this is a great opportunity to poll our audience and learn more about how you are currently managing your annual report due dates. So Anu, can you lead us through the next question?
Absolutely, Paula. Thank you. So folks, we have our second poll question on the screen for you. How do you maintain your filing due dates? We'll give you all a moment to make your selections. All right, thank you to everybody that participated. Paula, I'm going to turn this back over to you.
Great. Thanks, Anu. Okay, so we have a variety of responses again for this one, but it looks like the majority of you have indicated that you are using an Excel spreadsheet. So we'll discuss in more detail about how CSE can help you manage those due dates later in the presentation, but now we'd like to discuss the different filing requirements as it relates to the data that must be provided. Jen, can you provide us with more insight in regards to the information you must include when filing?
Sure thing. So typically, reports require what we consider basic entity data, which includes the principal office address, a list of officers and directors, their addresses, and a general purpose and signer. Some jurisdictions may also require current financial information, including your authorized and issued shares of stock, their par value, and paid-in capital. So a good example of that is in Illinois, where they require the previous year's paid-in capital and stock information as well as your current data. The state also requests revenue inside and outside of the state in addition to all of the basic entity data. Colorado, on the other hand, is an extreme example on the opposite spectrum. So they only require the principal office address and their signer information for their filings. Also, there are some states that have more challenging requirements, like Arizona. So in Arizona, they request disclosure information, which includes if any officer or director has filed for bankruptcy. And then for LLCs in Massachusetts, you must provide the name of the individual or individuals who can sign on behalf of real property. And in this case, it's very important that the information provided on that annual report is accurate because it could later be used and referenced during real estate transactions. So if the signing individual is not listed on the report, the real estate deal could be rejected or even placed on hold.
Jen, you bring up a great point there. So it's really important that we understand that annual reports can be used by other reporting agencies for a variety of reasons. I'm aware of one example where an individual was not listed as an officer on an annual report and was unable to open a bank account. The report then had to be amended, and then due to the state's turnaround time, it took 10 days to resolve.
You're absolutely right, Paula. So it's so important to not only file timely, but with accurate information. So an annual report not only fulfills the statutory requirement, but it can also be used as a reference for things such as business license filings. So I would like to ask our audience now an additional question as it relates to this topic. And I'm curious to know, how do you conduct research for filing requirements for your portfolio?
So folks, we have the multiple choice question on the screen for you, and we'll give you all a moment to make your selections. Okay, thank you to everybody that participated. Paul, I think you're going to talk to the results.
Yeah, it looks like the majority of our audience uses Google or Bing, followed up with calling the jurisdiction. Okay, so Jen, let's outline what could happen if an annual report is not filed on time.
Yes, that's definitely something we want to prevent from happening. So if a filing is not completed, most jurisdictions will change the entity status from good standing or an active status to a not in good standing status. And as we mentioned before, all annual reports are not created equal. So the duration between a change in status depends on each jurisdiction. Some jurisdictions provide a window of a few months to return the entity to good standing, but some jurisdictions only allow a few weeks before they'll update an entity to a not in good standing status. So typically when that occurs, the entity is unable to obtain a good standing certificate, and that could prevent you from conducting business or other business transactions. Jurisdictions can also revoke the entity's authority to do business in that state. And when that happens, an entity can lose the rights to their name. Some of the states will allow the entity to be reinstated, but others will require you to requalify altogether. And both of those options, as you can imagine, can be very time-consuming and costly. So there's a couple of other challenges associated with not being in good standing. So a state could assess late fees, penalties, and interest. And this is a very extreme example, but in Wyoming, if your entity becomes revoked, there can be a fee up to $5,000 to get it reinstated. So essentially, your ability to conduct business is compromised as you have lost your good standing in that jurisdiction.
Well, these examples, really do emphasize the importance of not only filing an annual report, but making sure that it is filed on time. So, Jen, let's discuss now if fulfilling the annual report requirement will also fulfill the business license requirement in the jurisdiction.
Yeah, this is a question that we receive all the time from our clients and prospective clients, and there's a lot of confusion around the difference between an annual report and a business license. So for an annual report, it's typically required for companies that are registered with the Secretary of State offices, and the entities are required to file reports to maintain their good standing in those states. Business licenses tend to be a little more complicated, so the requirements for a business license can vary depending on the business as well as the industry, but almost all companies must maintain some type of license. Whereas annual reports are mainly filed at the Secretary of State offices, business licenses may be required at the federal level, at the state level, at the county level, or even down to the town level. And whereas we generally work with about 51 jurisdictions for annual reports, just in the U.S. alone, there are over 160,000 licensing authorities. A few that you may know include the Department of Insurance offices, the Department of Health offices, cities like Newark, New Jersey, and Los Angeles. Another difference I wanted to point out is that you may be required to have multiple licenses from different licensing agencies depending on the nature of your business. But the good news is that CSC has a dedicated team of business license specialists to help keep you in compliance with all of your additional filing requirements in this area as well.
Well, thanks, Jen. It's really great to point out that CSC can offer assistance with business license requirements in addition to annual reports. So with the variety of jurisdictions, it really is easy to assume that the requirements are difficult to manage. You mentioned that some business licenses are filed with the state. Are there any states that allow you to file the business license and annual reports together?
So most states do require separate filings for annual report and business licenses, but there are some exceptions to that rule, such as in Nevada, where filing your business license in conjunction with your annual list is a requirement unless the entity is exempt. So in the case of Nevada, the annual report team can handle the filing requirement, and then we would send you a copy of the business license for your records. We'd also maintain an electronic copy here as well, so you can access it and review it if you need to.
Okay, that's great information again for our group, Jen. So let's outline how our annual report monitoring service works when outsourcing to CSC.
Sure. So when a new client comes on board, the first thing we do is have our annual report team conduct an initial audit of your entities, and we produce a detailed report of our findings. During this process, we're also going to want to obtain your officer and director information. And we take that information and we update our entity management solution, which is a web-based solution that we use to house all of your information to file our annual reports. During the audit, if we discover entities that are not in good standing, we'll assist you with getting those reinstated or returning those to good standing if you so choose. And then once you're on board for our service, we begin preparing your annual reports on your behalf. We'll file the documents. We'll even advance minimum state fees directly to the state, and then those will be charged back to you after your invoice is sent out. So there's 44 states that allow CSC to file online, but if a form is required, We'll obtain the information necessary to prepare your document, and then we'll forward the form to you for your attention so that you can review it, approve it, and then sign it if that's necessary. There's also 7 states that require additional stock or financial information that are included on the annual report. So again, in those cases, we'll prepare the forms with everything that we need that's required, and we'll forward those out to you for your review and approval. So I mentioned invoicing a couple of minutes ago. I wanted to reference that we do offer customized invoicing solutions to best fit your needs. So we can send out individual notices, summarized formats, or even e-billing options. We will provide you with confirmation of each filing after it's completed. And then one last important benefit, that CSC maintains strong working relationships with each of the Secretary of State offices. So this really allows us to best assist you with all of your annual report requirements in the 50 states, District of Columbia, Canada, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and even Puerto Rico.
Thanks, Jen. You know, you had mentioned our strong working relationships with the states. That's really, really important. I'd also like to discuss a little bit about order tracking. Now, can you provide more detail into what that means when you are working with CSC?
Certainly. So you will have a good standing calendar that's fully integrated with your annual report prep and file service. What this means to you is that it gives you visibility into your CSC managed filings versus any filings that you may be handling in-house. And then it also gives you transparency into when your due dates are coming up and when your reports are filed or were filed. It also gives you a status outline of your orders. So you'll have an outline of exactly what's open, what's in progress, and what's filed and closed out. You'll have a dedicated annual report customer service specialist, and they really pride themselves on maintaining those great working relationship with their portfolio of clients, and they'll be able to provide you with updates and the status of all of your filings. And in addition to your annual report specialist, you'll also get automatic email notifications for all of your upcoming filings. And then last, if you so choose, you can get email notifications from what we call our CSC deal room, and that will advise you of a change in the status of any of your orders.
Well, thanks, Jen, for reviewing how our team and systems work together to provide up-to-date status on orders. So we're coming close to the end of our time together, and we want to ensure that we offer time for questions from our audience. So, Jen, how about if we now summarize the value in outsourcing to CSC?
Yes, well, we think there's a lot of value in this service, but I will list off some of them here today. So I mentioned earlier that many states no longer send annual report notifications, so it's very difficult to keep track of any of your upcoming filings. So if you do decide to outsource, you can stop tracking each state's annual report filing deadlines and just let us worry about that. You can also stop worrying about researching and identifying using those, Google and Bing tools that you had all mentioned earlier, the requirements in each state, because, we're the experts and we know when each one is coming due. You can stop keeping track of which states now accept electronic filings, and also avoid paying your reinstatement fees, any penalties and interest that may be accrued because of an entity going out of good standing. You can save time, money, and resources while reducing the risk of missed filings and the loss of good standing. You no longer have to manage those pesky usernames and passwords with the Secretary of State offices. If you receive compliance mail notices, we all know how cumbersome those can be. CSC will review and receive all compliance mail notices on your behalf. We provide 24/7 visibility in regards to your good standing events through that good standing calendar that I mentioned in our corporate tracker service. So you can view the status of any CSC managed filings, as well as track and update the status of any in-house filings that you are maintaining. Another benefit is that we store copies of all of our filed reports for your reference in what we call an entity documentation integration folder. But really what it boils down to is that we can really take the stress out of your compliance needs by managing all of your annual report portfolio. We have a team of specialists across the country that are dedicated just to annual report filing services. And collectively, they have over 135 years of experience. And as Anu mentioned earlier, we're doing more than 200 filings per year. So we have state-of-the-art databases, coupled with our entity management solution and strong working relationships with each of the jurisdictions that really allows the annual report team to do an excellent job maintaining your entity data and managing filing due dates efficiently and effectively. So that concludes our presentation for today, and I'd like to turn it back to Anu at this time to kick off the question and answer session.
Thank you, Jen. Thank you, Paula. That was great. So we will now open up the Q&A session rather. On the screen, we have a question for you. Would you like more information about CSC annual report services? You can click one of the multiple choices options on your screen if you're interested in learning more about the service. And also, just as a reminder, you can download it after the webinar. We're going to wrap up for the day. Thank you to everybody who joined us. We hope to see you next time.